Arnold from the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild to go into a demonstration on wood turning finishes. It's a master class. That's what it says. We will be masters after this. And then we'll take a short refreshment break following after that. And at the end of the refreshment break, I'll draw a number for the dollar sweepstakes winners. You might take a look at the table. There's a lot of nice things there if you want to drop $1 or $2 in there. And then we'll go on to the table of the August challenge, which it looks like we got a lot of challenge items over there. That's great. It was based on the demo by Don Frank, and it was turn something from a branch. So we got a lot of variety over there. And we'll finish up with the show and tell table and showing the project presentations from our members. So that'll be our agenda tonight. I'll get started going through our announcements, try to keep them as short as possible. We did remain at 94 members this past month, so don't forget to promote our club to your friends. You might also mention that after the Labor Day holiday, we start knocking the dues for the remainder of the year down to $75 so they can get in a little cheaper and finish up the year if they'd like to. This is something that I'm looking for an opinion for or a show of hands, but the board is considering talking to the guild about trying to change the day and time of our club monthly meetings. Nothing's been discussed with the guild or anything yet, but we started having a conversation of possibly changing to a Saturday morning meeting to potentially give more people the opportunity to be here and to be able to get home without driving home at 10 o'clock at night. So hearing that and thinking about that as a concept, how many here would be in favor of a Saturday morning meeting versus a Wednesday night meeting?
Either way.
Wednesday? What do you mean?
Excuse me, Monday night meeting. I'm sorry. It's been Monday night for a long time. So
I see.
think about that. I'm going to probably pose the question again next month when you have time to kind of mull it over and think about how that would impact you. But we were, as a board, we were discussing it, and there were a lot of positives and very few negatives to that change. However, it's something that the guild would have to buy into, and that would change their meeting day potentially. And so there's a lot of work to be done before we get there. But do know that we've thought about it, and it might be something that we're going to be pursuing. But I would like to have you guys think about it, and next month I'll ask again. Don't want you to miss your chance at this month's dollar sweepstakes. The winners will be we'll choose from any of the great prize options over there. The winning ticket will be announced during the refreshment break following the demonstration. And then this month's challenge drawing winner will win 3 $10 craft supply gift certificates. And next is the August First Fridays event. Just a rundown on that. It was pretty well attended. Once the sun went down, it was pretty light and pretty hot until the sun went down, and then there were quite a few people there. Sales were moderate at our tent this month. We did have plenty of volunteer help, and that was much appreciated. So those folks that showed up to help and were there to sell, I appreciate you being there.
Okay.
And upcoming in Labor Day weekend, we've got the KC Irish Festival. It's just around the corner. We'd love to have some quality items at our tent again this year, so please consider donating some turned items to the club to sell. You can also have personal sales that will be allowed to the club volunteers, with 30% of the sale going to the club. So if you bring your personal items there, if you're volunteering time, you should feel comfortable bringing your personal items there, but 30% of those sales will go to the club. And then Kevin sent out an email, went out this week, I believe, that there is a sign-up sheet on Sign Up Genius. There's a link in the email that Kevin sent, and I think also from our website there's a link to be able to sign up for it. So it's a 3-day event, so we need plenty of volunteers. Please take a look and see if you can fit any of those days into your calendar.
May I interject something, Chris?
Sure.
The signups are 4-hour blocks on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so you could just come for 4 hours.
Right. It's a 4-hour blocks, and they also provide us with wristbands, so you get free admittance.
For the fees? pull
If
that
you're
sign
on the
out.
list, you need to be on that list so Kevin knows how many wristbands to ask for.
Thank you.
But 4-hour chunks is what we'd be volunteering for. Moving on to open shop, available every Saturday morning from 8:30 to 12 p.m. or later, and then on Wednesday and Thursday evenings from 6 p.m. till 9 p.m. except for the third Wednesday of each month, which is when the guild has their meeting. Just ask you to please report any equipment problems to the board, and want to make sure you know that the space in front of each of the electrical panels in the shop must remain clear. Do not place items in front of these panels so they are always accessible. And then David said our bandsaw is going to be down for a little bit. He's got some new bearings to be installed and a couple of other adjustments he needs to make. So if you're planning on using it over the next week, you might change those plans or find a different bandsaw because it's going to be down for a little bit. In our help wanted area, we've got a few things coming. Obviously, we've got, the club will host a tent again in October at the First Fridays event in October. We won't be doing September, but then there you go. I think we are going to have you set up a tent if that's what you want to do on that September. I'll talk to you later about that. Then also we need a member to assist with the audio video production at our monthly meetings. I had a new person here last month that I thought was going to be here this month and help Rob out, but he sounded like he had IT background. Oh, Ryan, right? Okay, Ryan, and I'll talk to you in a little bit too. I want to get you in touch with Rob. Ryan, thank you. Please, I'm not even going to ask the next thing. Do you have a project demonstration idea? I think we've got 2026 covered, but I'm sure Mike can start getting the calendar ready for demonstrators for 2027. So if you've got an idea or something you'd like to see, please let Mike know so we can start getting that going. Finally, we got upcoming events and activities. This 2 Saturdays from now, the 22nd of August, Bill Paulo will be hosting a skill builder on how to disassemble and clean a Vicmark wood lathe chuck. It'll be at 1 p.m. after open shop on that Saturday. I plan to have a couple of members here taking our club Vicmark chucks apart and cleaning them at the same time. And then Mike, you said a one-way? Yeah. Mike's going to have the part or the tools and things needed to break down and clean a one-way chuck also. So if you have one of these types of chucks and you want to get a little bit more information on how to maintain them and stuff, please come to this event and at the same time we'll get some of our shop chucks cleaned up and working better. It'll take place in our shop. Interested club members can come and watch the process. Bill will have the tools and cleaning solutions and things necessary to disassemble, reassemble a Vicmark chuck. If you own a Vicmark, bring it and clean it. We will clean the Vicmark chucks in our shop that day too, and as well, we'll do the one-way chucks at the same time. So it's August 22nd, 1 p.m. If you're interested, please be there. Our September monthly demonstration will be a presentation by Anthony Harris and myself. Anthony is going to demonstrate Christmas ornaments, and I'm going to hopefully demonstrate skewed Christmas trees and flowers similar to what you're seeing over there that Brian did a lot better job than me, so I'm kind of embarrassed, but that's okay. The club will have a tent. The club will have a tent at the KC Irish Festival. I've already mentioned that's on Labor Day weekend, September 5th through 7th. We'll also have a tent at the Lenexa Spinach Festival this year. We don't have a volunteer need then, but I wanted to let you know that we're going to be there. And if you're in that area, stop by the tent at Sarco Park Trails Park in Lenexa and see us. And that is on September 12th. Anthony mentioned at the board meeting that he is planning on offering a couple more turning class opportunities in the fall. Potential subjects were spindle turning, like Christmas ornaments possibly, friction fit lidded boxes, and he's possibly thinking about a thread chasing class. So if you've got some interest in that, let Anthony know so he knows kind of where the interest lies. Would appreciate that. This moves on to the safety minute that I've tried to pull out of here, but man, we keep coming up with reasons to keep it in here. I have no specific safety minute this month for myself. However, there were a couple of announcements of a couple of close calls, and I thought we just need to kind of keep that in mind and use these as reminders to always think about safety. Don's going to show us his close call, and it's pretty evident.
At the demo last month, I mentioned that I have a syndrome, WTTS, Woodturner Stress Syndrome, and it went off in a big way. This week, I'm glad none of you were there to experience it. My dog still doesn't like me. I had Jim Lambie. Sometime when you're bored for something to do, look up Russian skew on YouTube and watch them using it. It used to look like that. The catch was dramatic.
Wow.
So just, yeah, it's just another reminder that you just can't forget about keeping things safe as you can. You know, accidents happen, they're always going to happen. There are freak things that happen that you can't control, but if you're thinking safety all the time, it will keep you safer in general. Okay, that gets me through our announcements. It gets me through a safety minute, and we're on to our August demonstration. I'd like to introduce you to Craig Arnold. He's with the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild. He holds several classes over the year for wood finishes, and Mike was lucky enough to tie him down and get him to agree to do a finish class for our group. So I think he's going to try to stay, or at least keep it in line with round things somewhat, but if you've got questions and things, Craig would be happy to answer what he can while he's going. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Craig, and I'll let you go.
Thanks for having me tonight. I am not a turner. I've always said that if my wood spins, I'm doing something wrong. So I'm going to have my beautiful assistant here help me out with a few things. But I'm going to kind of do this like I do for the basic woodworking class we have at the Guild. I'm always the last night, and we talk about wood finishes. And Norm Carpenter always introduces me. He says, well, 90% of your work is done with the woodworking. You know, you've got beautiful joints. Everything's fitting together right now. The other 90% is finishing the wood. And, you know, he makes it sound like it's a hard thing to do. Nothing in finishing is hard. That's the beauty of wood finishing. It may take a lot of time, but it's not hard. And so your patience will be rewarded if you just relax and do this step. And tomorrow we're going to come back and do another step. And the next day we're going to do another step. It's a building process on a lot of these finishes. But the first thing that I always teach them is about surface preparation. Now, as a flat woodworker, we sand a lot with machines. And I will often see the people over here at our sanding station just take the sander and slam it down on the wood, and they're going across it like this. You're like, no, this is not the way you sand. With a sanding with a random orbit sander, you put the sander on the wood and then you start it. And you're only moving about 3 inches per second. So you're moving pretty slow across the wood. Now I know with turning, when you sand, you know, that wood is spinning on there pretty fast. So you can get through some things pretty quickly on there. And so just changing your grit, making sure you blow off the dust from previous sanding grits, because some of that grit may fall off. It may be trapped on your wood, and as you go through, you'll end up with little scratches. Particularly with a random orbit sander, they spin like this as well as spin like this. And so you'll often see little pigtails on things that are trapped in there, particularly if you're pressing hard on your sander. But after everything is sanded, the one thing that I like to do is take some denatured alcohol. Got a little bit left here. This is an excellent way to see what you missed. And I purposely have some boards here that I know some things are wrong with them. So you can see this. And a nice strong raking light helps immensely as well. But I'm just going to wipe down this piece of oak board and get a glare going on that. And you can see some of the planer snipe on there. There's some chatter from the planer on this board. And so this tells me that even with sanding, you know, my board is not ready to accept anything new. If you put stain on that, you'll really see those little chatter marks that are left behind. And I'm sure that, you know, tool marks would be left behind too. If your tool chatters at all, you're going to see that on there. But when you wipe it down with alcohol, you'll see and get that glare on it. You'll see some of those areas that need some additional help. And so as a flat woodworker, that's where I might use a scraper or even go back to my bench plane, my smoothing plane, and smooth some of those areas out. Too many times I see people take their sanders and they'll bring it up on edge like this and they'll try to get one little spot. Well, that's a good way to melt all the hooks on your sanding pad. If you've ever used any of the Guild sanders over here and wonder why the sandpaper doesn't stick, that's why, because all the hooks have been melted on them. People are pressing too hard or they're up on the edge doing this. If you need to go up on the edge, you need to go back to your card scraper and take that off, or go back to a tool and take that off on there. But once you have all your surface prep done, then you're ready to move on to coloring your wood or top coating your wood, what have you. So I've got a couple of pieces of wood up here. I've got some poplar, some red oak, and some cherry. And I'm going to show you a couple of techniques here on this stuff. Let me close this up. And how many of you have stained wood before using a pigment stain? How'd it come out? Pretty good? Not so good? So-so? What's that? Blotchy? Yeah. And so that's what happens when you use a closed poured wood like cherry or poplar. Because of the rising grain of the wood, the pigment stain is going to suck down inside, where the adjacent wood is pretty flat over here. It's going to stain pretty evenly. So you end up with this blotching on there. And so what techniques that I teach in the class, I go over 3 techniques for blotch control. The first one, which I do not use, is using a pre-stain conditioner. I bought this can back in 2017 and I never opened it. So it's 10 years old. This happens to be the water-based pre-stain conditioner. And so reading the directions here, sand with 120 followed by 150, then 180. Remove the dust. All right, so we're going to wipe off the dust. I use microfiber cloths because I can get the dust off this way. If you use a sticky tack cloth, those often have turpentine and other oil-based products in there. If you use a water-based stain or top coat, it may beat up like a freshly waxed car because of that oil you put on there behind. A microfiber cloth works great at removing the dust. Use an air hose, blow it off. Use a vacuum, suck it off. Either way, just get the dust off of there. And so, a word about microfiber cloths. If you buy these, you can buy them in big packs like this. Wash them and dry them, but don't use fabric softeners and don't use dryer sheets like Bounce. It will lose its dust grippiness on there. If you just wash them and dry them regularly, these will last for years. I have some of these that are years old that I still use, and they still do a great job of picking up dust off of the wood. All right. So with this, apply with a synthetic bristle brush or foam brush. Wipe off excess. Allow to dry at least 20 minutes, but no longer than 30. If you use this product, you are staining tonight. You know, if the kids are screaming bloody murder upstairs, bleed over the sink. I'll be up there in a minute. I've got 20 to 30 minutes to put this stain on. Right? So that's kind of a drawback to this. It really is just a transparent stain. And so when the rising grain comes up, this product is going to be sucked down inside, and that will block the color pigment stain going in. And that's how it's going to help alleviate the blotching. Okay. my least favorite way to prevent blotching. Another way, which is great for those people who don't want a lot of products, is to use a glue size. And for darker woods, I like high glue. For lighter woods, I like Elmer's school glue, just the white glue. 1 part glue, 4 parts water. And you mix that up, you paint it on, you let it dry, and then you lightly sand the wood, so that the idea is that the capillary action of the wood is drawing that watered down glue into the pore. And when you sand it, you're getting rid of the surface glue on the surface wood. So when you put your stain on, the stain will lodge in the pores and color the wood fairly evenly. Now, none of these techniques are 100% foolproof in preventing blotching. They can blotch even after you've done this kind of stuff. So, but this is great if you don't want to end up with a bunch of products laying around. Glue size, everybody's got glue around, right? So, my favorite way though is with shellac, using a shellac wash coat. Now, the important thing is that, I guess they're both the same can, is right down here at the bottom, 100% wax-free shellac. It has to be 100%. Now, Zensner, who makes seal coat, makes this shellac 100% wax-free. All right, so pass that around so people can see what they're looking for. Out of that can, that is a 2-pound cut of shellac, meaning that at the shellac factory, they took 2 pounds of shellac flakes and they dissolved it in 1 gallon of alcohol, a 2-pound cut. Okay, we're going to make it a 1-pound cut by taking 1 part of that shellac and 1 part alcohol, which alcohol is the vehicle for shellac. And we're going to make it very thin and alcohol rich. And that's what I have in this can. I've just mixed it up, put it in here. And very easy to put on. Some people use a rag, some people use a brush. I will use a brush. I thought I had one open here. Let's not cut the bristles. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Woodcraft or Rockler. They don't sell seal coat at Lowe's or Home Depot, but they do at Menards, and they have it in the area of sanding sealers. And I'll explain what a sanding sealer can do for you. But on either of these woods here, these closed board woods, just going to take my tack-along bristle brush and just flow this on. All right. And it doesn't take a lot, because it's alcohol rich, it will dry in about 5 minutes. And we can go on to the next step. That's the nice thing about this. I don't have to worry about it being, I don't have the 20 to 30 minutes like I do on the sanding sealer. I can come back in 5 months and put stain on this and it'll react just fine then. All right, so there's a pretty even coat on there. So we'll let that dry and I'll come back to that in a minute. Here. And now we'll talk about those stains that can be so problematic. Okay, got this, and we got this. So for years, all there was oil-based pigment stains. And I call them pigment stains because if you've ever opened a can of stain, there's that layer of sludge in the bottom. Those are the pigments, earth mined, dug up out of the ground, color matched. And then the color that remains up in the vehicle is a dye. So in a pigment stain, there are pigments and there are man-made dyes. The pigments lodge in the pores of the wood. The dyes color the cells of the wood. And so if you've ever stripped furniture, the chemical stripper will take off the top coat. It will take off a lot of the pigment, but it will not touch the dye, because that's actually in the cells of the wood. If you want to get rid of that color, you have to bleach it out. So when I use these, I want to make sure they're stirred well to get those pigments up into suspension. And I will continue to stir them as I'm using it. Now, in class, I always pass the can around so the student knows that they're using the right thing. But in practice, I pour some of this out into a container and use that container then, because I don't want to be sticking my brush, my maybe dirty brush, into this nice can. I'll just stick it in here, and if I realize, ooh, I got a lot of sawdust in here, I didn't do a very good job of cleaning. I want to get rid of that stain, clean my wood well, and keep going then. So, need an opener. So, oil-based, then, as people go, oh, that oil-based smells so bad, they start coming up with water-based stains. And there are a lot of great colors available in water-based. And when I decide which one I'm going to use, I'm picking the color. I'm not necessarily concerned, is it water-based, is it oil-based? I want that color. And so that's how I determine which one I'm going to be using. And then it also then determines what I might need to do before and after on this. So let's just use this oil base.
Thanks.
So oil base, as it is, uses a mineral spirits primarily as its vehicle, among other oil-based products, but for the easy part. Some brands like Minwax, they don't actually say like oil-based right on the can. Like this one says water-based right on the can. So I would ask a customer, when I worked at Woodcraft, I'd ask, well, is it oil-based or water-based that you're using? Well, I don't know. How do you clean it up? Go to clean up. Cleans up with soap and water. Great, you have water-based. Cleans up with mineral spirits. You have oil-based. That's an easy way to tell. If you can't figure it out by looking at the label, how do you clean it up? All right, and I'm kind of stirring it with kind of a scooping action, trying to draw those pigments up off the bottom.
You don't shake it?
No, I don't find the stains you can shake if you want, but I often have sprayed the walls and the ceilings with. I'll get to something. I'll tell you a funny story. Well, it's other people think it's funny. My wife did not. All right. So I like using just foam brushes. I had a whole big bag of them over here. Oh, there they are. And the right size one. There we go. All right. These aren't my favorite. The best ones are made by Gen Manufacturing. They are really good. All right. So let's see. See, this is dry. I can go on and put some stain on here. All right. So just I'm going to load up my brush. Do not, those of you who've had my class know, do not drag your brush across the can to dry it off because you need all that stain. So I'm going to put stain on these two panels right here so you can see it as with and without blotch control. All right. And being oil-based is going to have to sit a while because the oil-based products takes a while for the vehicle to evaporate away. And if you don't know this, this is the international symbol for evaporation. Right? And so the longer I let this sit, the more evaporation occurs, leaving behind a higher concentration of those pigments and dyes. So this has been on, probably we'll leave it on for about 2 minutes before we wipe it off. Now, the water base is going to be a little bit different. It dries pretty dang quickly. And because there's a lot of moisture in the air, it's very easy for this to evaporate. And get another stir stick. Another brush. And so this one, when I put it on, I'm gonna check it after a minute. And you'll notice my board here has some kerfs in it. This is an easy way to segregate your different components. Because a lot of times we'll do 3 or 4 things on here and we don't want stuff running together on there. So that's going to be a real dark. What color is that? That's called brown mahogany, believe it or not. Okay, so this has been 1.5 minutes, and we'll let that sit for a minute. So remind me to wipe this stuff down here in a second. Another great stain that is fairly new. It's probably within the last 15 years. Gel stains have become very popular. They are thick. This can's never been open. You can't even hear it in here. But this stuff is nice, particularly if you're doing big things or like cabinetry in place. You put a gel stain here and that's where it's going to stay. These liquids will run on there. So gel stains are great for the unusual things that you need to get in nooks and crannies with. And you can really do some unique techniques with glazing as well. So adding a secondary color, you can use these gel stains, but they're like jelly. You do have to work it in sometimes, on particularly if you've got carved things. If you're trying to get like a acanthus leaf on a knee of a table, you got to get it worked in there. All right, so how are we doing here? Yeah, it's looking all right. All right, see, this one's starting to dry up, so show you how to. So I like using Bounty paper towels. They're cheap, but there's a way to fold them so that you get the maximum amount of use out of them. So I'm going to fold it into the center like this. Those of you who've had my class remember this. And I'm going to fold it in half like that. Then I'm going to do the same thing this way. I'm going to fold it into the center like this. I'm going to fold it in half again. Because every time I wipe off some of the stain, I want to present a clean portion of this cloth to the wood. I don't want to use the same one. I had a lady come into the store and she had this table. It was beautiful and it got darker and darker and darker across the tabletop. And I said, well, how many times did you change your rag? She said, what do you mean? And I said, well, you didn't use the same rag. Oh, yeah. I said, well, you're probably putting on more stain than you were taking off by the time you got to the other side. And so we got her straightened out and she has a beautiful table. Now, this one, I'm going to just go down 1/4 inch on this side here to see, and that's pretty decent color on there. So I'm going to now turn it over and wipe off my whole piece, turn it inside out and wipe down this way. And then you can turn this around like this and do that. Now I've got some areas that I kind of missed a little bit when I wiped. I'm going to grab a blending brush here. So I have one for water base, has my WD on there, and I'm going to just kind of blend that together. So that comes out pretty nice. So you can see where with blotch control, without blotch control, and you can see that there's some blotchiness in there. It's kind of subtle, but you can still see it in there a little bit. But this really helps even out the stain on there. Pass that around if you like. Yeah, I'm coming up here on about 3 minutes on this guy. So, I want to get another one of these. Make this up real quick. And all right. So you can see just in my test here, this is about 3.5 minutes. There's a difference in the color in them, but is it significantly different than my raw wood? Yeah. So let's go ahead and wipe off the rest here. All right, you can see where I missed some spots right there. You can see that. So I've got my oil-based blending brush. No, I'll describe these in a second. So now I've kind of evened that out a little bit. So here you can really tell the blotching on here. You can see some of this blotching through here. Plus, you can tell that this didn't have very good surface prep because you can see the planar chatter. You can see those lines going across there. There's no way to get that out. So my surface prep was for shit on this one. Sorry. I know I guess what people in Arizona are watching this or somewhere. Okay. I'll watch my language. Okay. So you can see that, you know, there is a little bit of color difference, and that's because the dyes aren't really affecting the wood as much, so it's not getting as dark. I can make it darker by letting it set longer. Again, the vehicle evaporates away, leaving behind a higher concentration of pigments and dyes. In the class, and actually we, in our finishing special interest group, had 3 people sit up here and put stain on, and they left it on the same amount of time, and then they took it off. Yeah, Terry was one of them in that group, but all 3 people had different colors. You know, which one was right? Either of any of them, because it's your personal technique. If you don't like it that light, then wait longer. Don't wipe as hard. I have some of my students, they're grinding that stain off of there, and it's just like, leave some stain behind. Okay. So, any questions about pigment stains? Yes.
When you break the shellac down from 2 pounds to 1 pound, you're just taking an ounce of shellac and an ounce of DP.
Yeah, 1 to 1.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So now I'm going to talk about open poured woods, like this red oak here. When you put a stain on these, the pores of the wood, let me get over here on this side. This really has some good open pores. When you go from the early growth to the late growth, the early growth, you know, springtime, lots of water, tree growing fast, those pores are big. And the pigments really get lodged in there. So we're going to let this sit for about 3 minutes. I'll come back to this there in a second. And a lot of people don't like the way it looks because those big open pores really get dark because those pigments, there's a lot of pigments lodging inside there. But the adjacent wood, being just pretty flat, is being colored primarily by the dye on there. That's the late growth. There's still some pores in there, but not nearly anything like there is in springtime. So a lot of people don't like that dramatic contrast of the dark early growth and the light late growth. So how do you alleviate that? If pigments were lodging in the pores, what kind of stain would we use? We'd use who said dye stain? Somebody, I heard dye somewhere. You'd use a dye stain. And the popular brand is Trans Tint dye. This is a dye concentrate. It's mixed 1 ounce of this to 32 ounces of water. And so you end up with a dye that looks like this. So that's 32 ounces in there. If you get this on your hands, you can get it off in a day or 2. If you get this on your hands, you will be brown mahogany for a few days because it will really penetrate deep. So when I mix this stuff, I glove up to mix this in there. 1 ounce of this, 32 ounces of water. So this will actually has 2 ounces in it. So it will make half a gallon of dye. And they are, I think, about $26 now for one of these. And so you can get a lot of dye out of there. General Finishes bought Trans Tint recently, and they still make this, but they have I don't have a quart or a pint can. They make a pint can of dye pre-mixed, ready to go. Those are like $21. It would take a lot of those to make a half gallon. And so this is a more economical way to do it if you're doing a lot of dyeing.
On the Trans Tint, it can also be added to the nature instead of water.
Yes.
What's the difference? What's between one and the other?
Okay, the question was, can the Trans Tint dye be added to water as well as alcohol? And you are correct, it can be. When you add it to alcohol, you're making what is known as an NGR, non-grain raising dye. They're nice because they don't raise the grain like a water will, water-based will. The drawback is I'm going across, say, a tabletop or something big, this is drying really quickly because it's very alcohol rich. As I come back across, I might have a lap mark now. So I will often, if I need to use it with alcohol, I will often spray it because I can spray pretty quickly and get it sprayed on. I use, if you've seen these pre-vol sprayers, this comes from the automotive industry. And for smaller things, I can put my dye in here, put this on. This is the power unit. I've got a sprayer now. When this runs out, I can take my jar, put my lid on it, so I can keep the jar. Okay, label what's in here, and then just buy another power unit. So this is a great way to spray stuff very cheaply. I mean, where you don't have to fill up a whole spray gun or anything like that. Because I have a HVLP sprayer that if I just need to spray, okay, why, that's a lot of waste in there. I can do it with this very easily. Greenball has a pretty unusual way to tell you how much coverage this will do. And they say it will spray 2 Adirondack chairs. Now I have no idea how many square feet that is, but it'll do two Adirondack chairs. And so when you clean these, you take this off, just stick this in a cup of water if you're using water-based alcohol, if you're using alcohol-based product, if you're using oil-based, you'd use mineral spirits, and just hold it in a cup of water and spray it away from you. And you'll see this will get clear. Then turn it upside down, point this away from you and spray it again, and this tube will shoot out. And I store them without this part like this, because if there's anything that runs down here and gets clogged, I can clean it out with a toothpick right here very easily. So I know Woodcraft used to sell these. I don't know if they still do. Home Depot sells them. Auto parts sell them because that's where they come from, is the auto parts industry. Auto body repair. And so that's a great way to have a little sprayer. So. All right. How are we doing here? Oh, let's take a look at this. So fold up another rag. Yeah. If you're worried about getting dirty, wear gloves. All right. So you see I'm kind of heavy on this one side over here, but I'm going to use my oil-based blending brush and kind of blend that together. And you see how dark, those dark areas, that's the early growth. And a lot of people do not like that. Oh, I just hate the way red oak looks. No, that's why, because they do this. Now, if I use a dye stain, I always tell my finishing class that when they come to class, oh, you should have bought stock in the foam brush company, because we typically go through about 100 foam brushes. What was that dripping? I'm really going to saturate this here. And this color is golden brown, so it won't be nearly as dark, but it will be. So there you can see that the pigments, or the early growth, is not getting as dark in there, comparatively speaking, to the wood around it. So that's an excellent way to do that. Now, dye stains, the nice thing about those is you just put them on and let them dry. You don't wipe them off. Just let them dry. So if you do have a little puddle or something like that, you can dab it off. I've got a little puddle down here. I'm just going to kind of dab that a little bit, like that. And so that took care of those dabs there. And so that'll dry pretty evenly here in a second.
Do you hit it with a blending brush at all?
No, won't have to. Shouldn't have to. All right, so let me close this up real quick.
The darker one was oil.
It's well, one is a pigment stain and one's a dye stain. So, all right.
Pigment stain, that's pigment and dye.
Right, right. And so a lot of times you'll just see them advertised as wood stain. That's how they often, like if you see Midwax or some of the other brands, they'll just say wood stain. That has both coloring components, pigments and dyes.
I got a question.
Sure.
Okay, midwax versus general versus other finishes. Golden brown is the same between.
No,
So is there any standardization?
No, no.
Like, is pigments finer in general finishes versus? Help us understand, get a handle around.
Well, I like General Finishes products, not only because I sold them at Woodcraft, but they are better. They have about 3 times the amount of pigment and dye that the M brand has. Their urethanes have 3 times the amount of urethane resin in them. And so you get what you pay for. I mean, you are getting a product that is more robust. It's going to work faster for you on there. So that's one of the reasons why I like that.
Is that a rule of thumb you can generalize this across all different finishes? Basically, you get what you pay for.
Right. Yeah. I know there's one brand of, I can't remember the company, but this was 15 years ago now. But I wanted to know, why is your stuff so much cheaper than General Finishes? And the lady I was talking to, her father was the chemist for the company. She says, well, you're getting what you pay for. They have like 3 times the amount of urethane that we do. And we just don't want to put that much in there because it'd make our price too high. And so that's what you're paying for is, you're paying for that extra urethane resin in there. You're paying for those extra pigments and extra dyes that are in there. Yeah, will those products work? They will. People get great results with them. I like these because I know how they work. I may have to, in some instances, people have often had to go back and put another coat of stain on after their first coat is dried for a couple of days. It just wasn't enough for them. Or they have to adapt their technique, maybe not wipe off as hard, maybe put more on. There's all kinds of these personal things that you do as putting stain on and taking stain off. So you just have to adapt to, if you don't like that color, make it the way you want it then. And that's the nice thing about finishing is, again, it's not hard. It just takes time. You may have to take some time to get your stain the way you like it before you go on. Now that's why I always do these test boards like this. These are kerfed off, so if I'm doing some dyes and then staining on top of it later, I can see my progression as I go across. And when I get to the end, I'll even put top coat on them too, because you want to evaluate it with the top coat. I'll show it to my wife and she'll say, yes, that's the one I like. And I say, okay, here, sign the back for me. She doesn't laugh. But...
How many times did she get that test one signed?
Yeah, well, yeah, she does okay. Usually I can get her within a couple of different options. So, but I use these jars here. I was going to tell you this funny, or the story that my wife does not think is funny. These are Fido from Italy. They are 1 liter, so it's about 34 ounces. So it gives you plenty of room to stir when you're mixing your dyes in here. I also add a tablespoon of denatured alcohol to this. So that helps it be a little bit wetter on the wood. Gives me plenty of room. Has a nice rubber gasket. Before I started using these, my wife and I like a particular brand of salsa. It has a nice wide mouth jar. And I thought, boy, those would be great for dye stains. Mix up my dye stains in there. Yeah, this would be great. And so I'm just, pick it up and I start shaking it like this. And, and I put it on and, okay, it's all good. And then I hear this, I go upstairs and I hear, my wife goes downstairs and I hear this screech. And I go downstairs and there's this dye. Well, those jars, they only seal really well at the factory. They don't seal really well anymore. So I went to these jars. Yes, that's my funny story there. So, all right, so let's set these all aside. Now let's do some fun things here. We are going to okay, this is one that a lot of the class really likes. You remember the hot oil? Who's in my class? Remember that? Okay, it's your turn. Okay, so this oil is about 140 degrees. That's high on a crock pot. Just put some of it on here and you can just spin it by hand just to put some on. Now, because it's warm, it's going to come out pretty fast. Yeah, so just put it on. So this is boiled linseed oil. Yep. Yes.
But then you just cook it in 140.
Yeah. So now go ahead and spread it around. Yeah. Okay. Now, in the class, the students will.
Lick their fingers?
Okay. So now what you're going to do is take this wet, dry sandpaper, turn the lathe on, kind of medium speed, or not medium, I'm not sure. Just turn it on, let's see how fast. Yeah, about like that. And now you're going to sand that wet oil. So you all might get splashed. So what's happening is that the hot oil is opening the pores of the wood. The sanding with this wet dry 800 grit wet dry sandpaper is creating a slurry of sandpaper, of sawdust and oil, and it's packing the pores. Yeah, turn it off. Let's see what it looks like. Oh yeah, okay. And so now, ooh, I got stain on that, didn't I? Where's my paper towels? Oh, here. Let's see if I get some more. So now I just want to wipe off the excess here. Okay. So you turned on the light. Well, yeah. All you need a little treadle. Yeah. So now I've got this, and when you feel the difference from that one to this one.
Yeah, you feel where the pores are
Yeah.
being filled in
Yeah.
by the slurry.
Right. Yeah. And so something like this, you'd want to do 3 times over 3 days, 1 a day. As this cools, the pores will shrink and it will weep out some of that oil. And so tomorrow, when you come back to do this again, you'll take a white Scotch-Brite pad. Ah, here they are. A white Scotch-Brite pad, and just knock off all that wept oil. Wept, wept oil, wept. I don't know. What's that? All the oil that's been purged from that closing pour. So you'll just wipe that off, and then you'll do it again. Hot oil, sand it, wipe off the excess, let it set overnight, wipe it off. So I like using the white Scotch-Brite pad. This is the equivalent of 4/0 steel wool. A long time ago, people used to use steel wool on this, but steel wool flakes off and will rust in your finish. You have these little black spots in there. This won't rust. All right. So you have 4/0 steel wool. The gray one is 3/0. The maroon is 2/0. And these you'll often see laminated yellow sponges at your sink. These are 1/0 steel wool, or its equivalent on there.
Is that universal across 3Ms and all?
Yeah, they've all kind of adopted, the other manufacturers have adopted these. So, but yeah, they're, you know, very fine, medium, coarse. So,
Once you use that to finish slurry off on the first day, and you do it again, you can use that same pad.
You can use that same pad. Yeah. That's another neat thing about these Scotch-Brite pads is I can wash them. You know, I can take them over the sink or put them in mineral spirits and get rid, and then soap and water. Actually, I use mineral spirits first to get rid of anything that's on there that's oil-based, and then use lacquer thinner to cut the greasiness of the mineral spirits, and then soap and water. And then you have a pad that's virtually brand new again. And so it's that wiping off or getting it wiped down with the lacquer thinner helps with the greasiness on there. Okay. Now, here's another fun one. We call this one, or I call this one, the Christmas Eve finish. So you remember this? It's easy to do for a flat woodworker. It's fun and easy, quick. I can add some color to something pretty easily, not have to get out stains and all that kind of stuff. But it requires some beeswax. And so just on one of these, turn this on and just rub some beeswax across. Yeah, okay. Let's see how we got. Oh, perfect. All righty. Now, so this is actually a French technique that was in a old book that I have on finishes. Let me find my stuff here. Oh, here it is. It's all right here. I had it all staged, ready to go. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to pounce, P-O-U-N-C-E, on some abrasive. In this case, it's going to be pumice, and this is medium pumice. All right. So I'm just going to pour this, and it's a powder. Gather up this and gather this around and create this little pad like this. And so when you pounce something, let's use the back of this board here, I'm not going to jab it onto the wood. I'm going to slap it on the wood. And there you can see the powder's coming off. It's actually coming through the weave of the fabric. So, this is an old t-shirt, yeah, white t-shirt. So just, you can spin this by hand and just slap, slap, slap. Yeah. Perfect. All righty. Good job. Now we want some color. So this is Gamblin, G-A-M-B-L-I-N, Gamblin brand oil soluble powdered dye. All right. You can get powdered dyes, but they might be water soluble. So you have to make sure that you get the oil soluble ones because beeswax is an oil. So I'm going to take some of this. This color is burnt umber. It's a pretty dark brown. And I'm going to pounce it right on top of the, there you see, come out like that. All right. So pounce away.
Chris.
Very well done. All right. Now, this is in the class, I even mentioned that turners would love this finish because as a flat woodworker, we have to sit here with our gray Scotch-Brite pad and scrub and scrub and scrub and scrub and scrub and scrub and scrub. And what happens is that the pumice will turn transparent in the oil and start packing in the pores, along with taking that pigment along and coloring the wood as well. And I said, turners would love this. You know, do this, well, they're done. All right. And some of you have had the class. How long did you have to scrub on your wax before it finally started looking good? So again, with this, yeah, turn it on. Yeah, just go back and forth. Let's see how we're doing here. Yes. Yeah, and so now I'm done. All right, that's all it took. You can put
Thomas did a little bit more, would it have darkened even?
Yeah, you could put more dye on that. In fact, if you wanted to, you could do that now. All right. It may take a little bit more wax on it, but you could build that up a little bit more if you wanted to. And
some of the dust flew on.
yes, yeah. And so that's probably what we lost a little bit of it, but you can tell it's significantly smoother even than the adjacent wood there.
That's not French polish.
No. No. You really want me to get into that? So, maybe. I've never done that. It'd probably be a different look. I just know this because this is, I think my book was written in 1847. And it's a very old technique for adding color. It's not ideal for big things because you're sitting there scrubbing and scrubbing and scrubbing like that. But with small things, you know, if Aunt Marge is coming for Christmas dinner tomorrow and you don't have anything for her, well, don't you have a box you can give her? Yeah, I got a box. Make up a box for her. And you can do it real quick like that because it's not a very durable finish, but hey, Aunt Marge is just going to set this on a shelf and look at it. No, look what my nephew made me. You know, I was going to call this the funeral home called and Grandma Needs Her Urn finish, but that doesn't roll off the tongue like Christmas Eve finish does. So, but you can see just real quick, I mean, I'm done with that. I've got a pretty decent, I've added some color to it. I can probably do it again. And you could also, I haven't tried this on a lathe, but you can probably dye the wood and then add this darkness to it as well. And that would give you some more color in your early growth. Because right now the color is lodging in the, or excuse me, you get more color in your late growth. Right now the color is lodging in the early growth, the bigger pores of the wood on there. Okay, so far so good? All righty. And if you do see that your pad, your scotch part pad is loading up, just turn to another side and use that on there. I know in the class when they're sitting there grinding away on this, they get it loaded up and it's like they're not removing anymore, moving it around. So just find a new clean spot and just keep moving around with it on there. So close.
Now, can you take the leftover pumice, the brown pumice that's left over in that?
Yeah, and that's what I'm going to do here. I don't want to take the time to do that now, though. And get this out of the way. All right. So that's a couple of ways that I know, like on the lathe, would work pretty well. Okay. Let's talk about some top coating now. For years, there was shellac, and you see these actually say shellac on the can. These are excellent top coats, as long as it's not for your bar top, because this is alcohol based. And if you spill your scotch or bourbon on here, you will soften the top coat. All right. So these contain the naturally occurring wax that, remember, our seal coat was wax free. Okay. Now you can make this stuff wax free if you let it set for about a year. The wax will sink to the bottom and you'll have this layer of white wax on the bottom, and you can siphon off this and it'll be really pretty close to being wax free. But if you stir it, you're going to incorporate that wax back up in there. The wax does make it flow a little bit easier because this is thicker. This is a 3-pound cut. So they use 3 pounds of flakes and 1 gallon of alcohol. So you get a higher concentration of shellac in this. Okay. So excellent top coat. It's got clear and amber. If you make period furniture, if you're doing turnings for anything that's made from the 1700s, boy, amber shellac is going to be your finish for that. It's alcohol based, so it dries very quickly. You can build coats. French polishing will use this. Starts out with very small, flat work, very small figure eights with pumice and a little bit of oil on it to make it more lubricated. As soon as you feel your shellac start to drag, your pads start to drag, you pull off, reload with some shellac, then a little bit of pumice, a couple of drops of walnut oil is traditional, and then you disperse it on the back of your hand, and that disperses it through the pad. Then you will go on with and you'll put on about 7 to 10 coats that way. Then over the next 2 or 3 days, you'll put on longer figure eights. No more pumice though. Then after 10 coats of that, then you'll start going into longer figure eights. And then pretty soon you're doing one big figure eight across your entire piece. And you're building and building and building on this. So the reason why French polishing works so well is that the vehicle alcohol in the new stuff I'm applying dissolves what I've already applied. So it becomes one big thick coat on there. So unlike modern polyurethanes, These require sanding between each coat to create a mechanical bond. And so when you put this on, if I were to put this product on, the polyurethane on without sanding, it may flake off. And so you have to sand to give that first coat a mechanical tooth for the next layer to adhere properly. Let that dry overnight, give it a light sand, and then apply another coat. Generally, I just use 3 coats, whether it's oil-based or water-based. Well, if you're a heavy-handed sander like I tend to be, I use 400 grit. But if you're a light-handed sander, then 320. And I do know that most people sand too heavy, too hard, too long. And so I don't have any sandpaper on this, but this will show you. So I've already put a coat on, and I need to sand it to apply the next coat. There, I've sanded. It does not require, because you need some of that left behind, all right? You're just creating a mechanical tooth for the next layer to adhere properly. And notice when I sanded, I didn't zigzag across the board. I went back and forth, lift it up, move it over, back and forth, lift it up, move it over. Now with a prepping weapon or a big sander like this, you know, where's my prepping weapon? That's what they're called. And they come in multiple colors too, so I can put different grits in here. But with these, I can turn this sideways and cover a lot of real estate. Doing a tabletop, back and forth, lift it up, move it over, back and forth, lift it up, move it over. I'm going to do a whole top, and then move it over. Now, yes, with the grain, yeah, because you're literally creating scratches in that first layer of top coat. And you're going to disguise those scratches by going with the grain. All right.
You go to desktop. Right.
I find Scotch-Brite pads and steel wool are too inconsistent of a grit, where I'd rather have very consistent grit across there. You know, because the Scotch-Brite pad I have to hold in my hand. So I've got this and then a void and this. And so it's just inconsistent. People are very successful using them. That's for you. That's the way to do it. For me, I like using consistency across the entire thing. That makes sense? Okay.
You wipe the dust off.
Yes, wipe the dust off. I use a microfiber cloth, again, to wipe off the dust, or you can blow it off. Be careful if you blow it off, because sometimes there's moisture that's condensed in your blower or in your air compressor. Make sure you can separate, you know, we have water separators over there. Even then, I can still get moisture. I can feel wetness coming out. So again, I just use the microfiber cloth to wipe off the dust. And then you're ready to go on to the next coat. Now, my grandfather, he was a furniture maker, and that's where I started when I was about 6 or 7 years old, learning how to sharpen chisels and plane irons. And he said, nothing happens unless it's sharp. And so after a couple of years, when he was convinced that I could keep things sharp, I got to actually work with the wood. That was a very long 2 years for me. I remember that. So he had a technique. I can find the right brush here. There we go. And another piece of wood. I had some more wood around here, didn't I? Oh, where's those ones I passed around? Yeah. All right, thank you. All right. Well, I use the cherry here. So with the oil base here, oh, I got to stir that. I'll stir it with this. Oh, thank you. So this happens to be the armor seal made by General Finishes. And the sheen is gloss. Okay. All right. So my grandfather, he put his oil base, he would have to make his own, in fact, using turpentine and Japan dryer and all that. And so he would put it on kind of heavy. and let it set. And he'd let it set until it passed the crinkle test. What's the crinkle test, Craig? I'm glad you asked. So while it's wet like this, when you touch it with your fingerprint is going to fill in. And you wait another minute or two and just take your finger, go across it, and the fingerprint will fill in. Wait another minute, and then your fingerprint will remain crinkly. That's when you wipe off the excess. And it's not grind it off, it just wipe it off gently. So oil-based products like this, if you've got a drip or a run, no problem. I'm going to wipe that off. Got a puddle? No problem. I'm going to wipe that off. So your oil-based application doesn't have to be pristine. Just if you do this technique, you will have a beautiful top coat on there. And people who have never top coated anything in their life have done oil-based top coat, and it just comes out beautiful on there using that crinkle test. So we're going to let that set for a little bit. Now we have water-based. Now, the benefit to water-based is that it dries, it will darken the wood slightly, but it will dry almost water clear. It will not add color to the wood. You can see how even this oil base here has added a little amber to it. So that's why, again, you want to use your top coat in your finishing sample, because it can influence the color of your finished wood. So again, another brush. Let me get all these big ones in here. There we go. What's that?
How many brushes do you have?
He used just one because he only had one finish. He only used this here. He didn't have water-based back then. All right. So the water-based stuff looks like milk. All right. Because there are two giant polymers inside of this can floating around. And when they become stretched out flat and exposed to the atmosphere, they cross-link and become transparent. Now, the drawback to this is that you can overwork the water base and you will get brush marks. If I continue to wipe and this and that, and I see some of the people, how many of you did I call Rembrandt in the class? When it dries, you will see brush marks in there because this water-based stuff, it evaporates, the water evaporates pretty quickly, where the oil base is going to take a while. And you can see how my oil base, well, I can, has really flattened out. The goal is to leave some of that moisture behind. The more you work it, the more the vehicle evaporates away. Gravity will pull the top coat flat, even on a vertical surface. It will pull it flat. And that's what this is doing right now, is gravity's pulling this out. Now, if I overwork it on this water base, that milky look, you'll come back tomorrow and it'll be kind of frosty looking. You're like, what did I do? I overworked it. Now, my wife now believes me that it will go away, but the first couple of times, what's that? It's not going to go away. Yes, it will go away. You just have to let it dry. It will continue cross-linking, but it'll take a while for it to become transparent again.
How long's it while?
Overnight, 2 days, 3 days, depending on how much moisture is in your air. You know, if you've got real dry air, then this will evaporate a lot faster. If you've got a lot of moisture in your air, it will take a little bit longer.
It's not like what you should.
No. So let's try the crinkle here. I'll put that on there. Nope, see it filled in, so it's not time to wipe it off. Now, you can't wipe off the water base. You can't do the crinkle test on the water base because you'll disturb that cross-linking in there. All right. So other top coats that are typically used, a lot of times people use lacquer. I know rattle can lacquer is a great top coat on there. With this, the lacquer, you do not have to sand between coats because like shellac, this is a chemical bond. The alcohol and shellac will dissolve the earlier coats put on and will just meld into one big thick coat. Same way with lacquer. The lacquer thinner, that is the vehicle of this product, will dissolve earlier coats of lacquer and become one big thick coat on there. So it makes it very easy to repair these. You know, in 100 years, if I know that's shellac, and I can tell because I can take off a piece of hardware and with a Q-tip loaded with alcohol, I can rub on that clean top coat underneath there. And oh, look, the top coat comes off. This is shellac. Put the hardware back on, or actually take all the hardware off, and I can recoat the entire thing with the new shellac. That brand new shellac will meld with 100-year-old old shellac.
Wow.
Very easy to make a repair. Same way with lacquer. Okay, let's try crinkle again. And not quite yet. All right, now some other things here. Oh, paint. How many of you paint your stuff? No paint. This happens to be from Fusion Paint in Canada. They sell it. There's a couple places in town that sell it. This is called Alchemy paint. It has, let's see, I can't remember the exact formula, but it is what's that? Chalk paint. Thank you. It does have chalk in it, as well as a little bit of acrylic. Acrylic, something, and chalk is the C for alk on there. This is a wonderful paint. I probably end up getting all the colors. It sands beautifully if you're trying to do any sand through effects where you paint something, for example, red, and you put black on top of it and you sand through the black to expose the red. It sands very beautifully, very much like a milk paint would. It's just water-based. It's easy to clean up, easy to flow on. If you don't overwork it, you'll get, and most people try to put it on too thin. Really put it on. And you can do, I know Matt Kenny does some painted turned boxes that he's done. They really look beautiful, and he uses this style paint for it. And they're just so smooth and nice all the way around it. Really looks good on there.
Any top coat over that thing?
You may, or you could use a penetrating oil as well. That is, if you're doing like a period piece, like an old Windsor chair, a lot of those were painted red and then painted black. And the black just kind of looked like it was really dark gray, kind of chalky. You could use tung oil on top of it. Tung oil does take a while to cure, though. Weeks and weeks and weeks sometimes. If you're using 100% pure tung oil, if you buy the thing that says tung oil finish, there's probably not a drop of tung oil in it. It's probably all boiled linseed oil. There's that F brand that they say tung oil finish. What's in there? Boiled linseed oil. Oh, okay. Then there's thought I had my can out here. I'm teaching the finishing class tomorrow night, so I got my whole room in there. It's got 2 tables full of stuff right there. But boiled linseed oil technically has never been boiled. When they add the metallic dryers to linseed oil, it froths, giving the illusion of it being boiled. They do heat it slightly, but you have these metallic dryers on the inside of it. That's the boiled linseed oil dries a lot faster. It will dry overnight and cure within about maybe 10 to 14 days around here in this atmosphere. I know there's a great book on finishing that called Foolproof Wood Finishing. For those who love to build and hate to finish, boy, that does that describe a lot of woodworkers. Norm Carpenter says he's got 9 projects at home that are completely put together. They just need to be finished. I think he might have whittled that down to 8 now. But Terry does a great job. There's Terry on the back. She does a great job of describing this very conversational style that she writes in. But if you do read this book, I know our library over here has a couple of copies of this book. You want to start at the beginning and read all the way through. If you just start with the recipes in the back, there we go, like this. And it will say to do something, do something. I would have people call me at the store and say, she talks about this shellac wash coat. What's this mean? I said, well, turn to page 32 and read what it says there. I'll teach you how to do that. So, but this is a great book. I'll pass this around if you want to take a look. That's a great book for the whole, about 60% of what we do in the class comes from this book here. So, all right. let's see, what else do I want to talk about? Oh, Danish oil is another penetrating oil. The most famous brand probably is Watco. Watco is also available in different colors. And this particular color happens to be black walnut.
Okay. Times that they change the formula on that stuff.
Well, they try to thin it out, try to extend their product, so it is getting a little thinner. If you like a thicker Danish oil, tried and true is a thicker Danish oil. You do have to use this sparingly, because if you put it on too heavy, it will not cure, ever. You really have to put it on and wipe it down. So, all right, you're up. Actually, let's use a cloth for this. So now this is Danish oil and black walnut. You're just going to take some of this, and while it's spinning, put that on. Pretty. And so that's black walnut. And so I can put on 3 coats of this, or if I like that color, instead of putting on this product again, put on the natural. It has no added color to it. And you end up with a nice build. Yeah, it would maintain that color there. Yes, if I use this darker, yeah, it will use it. But if I like that color, stop with this and move to the natural. If I want it darker, let that dry overnight, come back and put it on. But, yeah, so it really does pop that grain in there. So,
And then that's all you gotta do.
that's it. Yeah. You don't have to put a top coat on it. You may, but you'll want to put an oil-based top coat because they're similar vehicles. If I wanted to use a water-based top coat, I'd have to let that cure, just not dry, but cure. Cure is the absence of vehicle, and the smell test tells you, nope, still smell it. All right, it's not ready. So once it's cured, generally around here, 10 to 14 days for oil-based, maybe longer if we're got a high humidity. And when I do my sheets for my class, say wood type, date, temperature, humidity. Because if it's real dry, everything's going to dry a lot faster. But then when I come back 6 months later to start finishing this project, my humidity may be different. So I may have to extend or shorten my times. If I've determined that 3.5 minutes was the length of time I needed to leave my stain on to get the proper color, I may have to change that because of a different humidity or different temperature. Yeah, you had a question in the back.
Yeah, Craig, how do you know what to drop down, what to wet sand and what not to wet sand?
Well, I wet sand just because that's a kind of a cool technique to really make it.
So you wet sand everything?
No, you don't have to.
No, I know you don't
with
have
that,
to,
or you
but-
just put it on, you're done.
Okay.
So I will tell you that, and I know a lot of the turners know about micro mesh pads. You can really make wood. Or a lot of people use them for CA finishes on pens, but you can also use it on wood. So I have a set that I use on finishes, on top coats, and I also have a set that I use on woods. If you polish wood, you can make it very glossy just by using boiled linseed oil. But you have to put on very thin coats, and it takes a few of them, but it will look like glass. And all it is just boiled linseed oil on top of highly polished wood. So it works better on closed poured woods than it does on open poured woods. So, yes.
So just as a sidebar, the Watco oil, if you want to make a really quick tabletop that will resist glue, MDF, Watco oil, just smother it, wipe it, let it set for 2 days, and then wax it.
Yeah.
Then you can take a gallon of glue and pour it on there and just peel the whole thing off.
Yeah.
Well, but it's okay. One, they don't want you to go too high of a grid before you put a finish on because you polish it too much.
Right. That's correct. Same way with the stains. I should have pointed this out with the stains. The liquid stains, the oil base and the water based liquid stains, you can go up to 220 grit on these. But this gel stain, 150 grit, because the pigments are much bigger in this than it is in the liquids. And so, you know, what grit do you sand to? This will tell you. You know, your stain is what's going to tell you. Now, the coarser you sand, the more pigments are going to get lodged into the scratches created by your sandpaper, not necessarily the pores of the wood either. Right.
That true with on it as well.
What's this?
It's not over sand before you put tile on.
No, because it's going to color everything. So, in fact, where's that board? I was going to show you all. Oh, here it is. So now this is dried. You can see how even that color is really evened out quite a bit on there. While it's wet, it had a little bit more contrast. But you can see up here with the pigment stain, those pigments are in those pores. Where down here, it's fairly even color from the early growth to the late growth. There's a little difference, but nothing like it is with the pigment stain. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
You haven't made any of tabletop boxing in relation?
No, I don't use epoxy. Yeah. You know, I'll watch a video online. As soon as they break out the epoxy, I go to the next one. I know people do beautiful epoxy work. I don't have any need for it.
I just wondered how it fitted the wearability, durability.
Yeah, very durable. Yeah, it is a very durable finish. It can somewhat be repaired. You know, if you get a scratch in it, you can sand it because it is so thick on there and repolish it. But I've never tried it. I have no desire. All those waterfall tables that people used to make, I used to just, you know, people wanted to come in and show me their tables like, oh God, all right. You know, I'll try to be polite. But I just can't. Yeah. Yeah. I know people wanted to coat cutting boards with it. I'm like, you'll scratch it all up. Oh, but it'll be durable. All right, do what you want, you know. Okay, so let's go back over here. You know, you can be my witness. See how it's crinkly?
It is crinkly.
All righty. So now I'm going to take my all right. Okay, so pass that around and see if you think that that one looks pretty even. No brush marks. You notice I wipe down the side, the edge of it as well. So that's going to be the first coat of 3 that I'm going to do the exact same way. Tomorrow I will sand that, wipe off the dust, apply the other coat, crinkle, and then wipe it off. So you can get very easy, good results, you know, with this on there. What the armor seal? Yeah, that's the crinkle test. So where we check it just with our fingerprint, and when my fingerprint is left behind, yeah, that's the oil-based armor seal from General Finishes. I'm just taking off the excess, or not excess, but I'm just taking it off, making it even. But it just gives you a very nice even coat on there. No brush marks, no nothing on there. So people who have never done this before can have some really successful looking pieces by using that crinkle test.
If you're using that on trim, any kind of curved surface or whatever, you just use it kind of like that.
No, because that's going to be too abrasive. That's going to take off some of the stuff that you need to stay behind. It's going to, that Scotch-Brite pad is going to reach clear down to the bare wood. Then I'm just using a paper towel.
No, I mean the clean coat. I'm sanding the clean coats.
No, I'm still going to be use sandpaper.
Oh, okay, even on the curve.
Yeah, even on the curves, I'll, you know, get dowels or I'll make points or something, and then I can just go in there and just give it a real quick rundown, wipe it down with a microfiber cloth. You know, I'll take a dowel or a round over, make my own sanding block, go across, and that way just wipe off the dust with a microfiber cloth and you're ready to recoat then.
Just enough to scratch it.
Yeah, you're just creating a mechanical tooth for that next layer. It doesn't have to be real heavy on polyurethanes.
What about sanding sealer? You're gonna talk.
Oh, sanding sealer. Okay, so let's go back to this. This is sold as sanding sealer. And what sanding sealer does for the finisher is it will show immediate build on the first coat of top coat that you put on. So often you'll see this put down first on kitchen cabinets and trim before they come through with lacquer and spray. If they just sprayed the lacquer on bare wood, that lacquer is going to be heavy here, lighter here. It's going to be kind of inconsistent. Where with the sanding sealer put on, and this goes on, you know, I can rag this on, I can brush it on, and it will lay really flat. When I come through with my very first coat of lacquer or any of these top coats, it's going to show a real even application on there. And that's what a sanding sealer does. What it doesn't do is let the top coat bond to the wood. It's a layer in between the top coat and the wood. So it's not sometimes as durable as just putting the top coat right on the wood itself. So like for a tabletop, I probably wouldn't recommend a sanding sealer on there because it's that top coat is not going to bond to the wood. That's going to get a lot of wear on that. So.
Are there engineers where quality of finish and then the sheer,
Yeah, no, on that, the sheen, and I've got some boards here that will show you the sheen. The sheen really doesn't matter. Okay, the product is what matters. So in general finishes, this is the old high performance water-based cans. They're now blue, thank God, because we would ask people, which product did you use? Well, it came in a green can. Well, they both come in green cans. All right. Light green or dark green? I don't know. Okay, so general finishes started making their water-based in a blue can. So when you read their literature, the Armor Seal, it ambers, okay, because it's oil-based, where the water-based dries virtually water clear. The literature from General Finishes says water durability, excellent on the oil base, merely good on the water base. So the oil-based product is more water durable, ideal for a tabletop or a bar top. Not so good for something that's going to see water. So you may not want this for the kitchen table. All right, where this one will be ideal. So you have to include your top coat to get your colors right. You know, because if you end up with something that's too yellow, it's too yellow, what do? You know, you have to make a toner then, and to tone down that yellow.
Durability is gloss same as the satin.
In these products, it is, yes. You know, I have not found any of these things. I'll pass these around so you can take a look at them. So, and then keep in mind that this gloss product down here, it looks like the wood has been sealed in plastic. It really has a definite look to it. Whereas you move up in less glossy, it gives you almost a really in the wood look on there. And so if I were using a penetrating oil on a piece of wood, I'd probably want to use the satin to keep that in the wood look. I'll pass that around. Now, when you look at the water base, it's kind of hard to tell the difference in the sheens on these. They are not real definite on there. Gloss, and there's flat, where those kind of look. So again, anytime you're using these that have these zinc dry or these zinc diffusers in them, they use zinc to make it a light diffuser in there. So gloss has none, semi-gloss has a little, satin has a little bit more, flat has a lot. And so you really have to keep those up in suspension as well. Because if you let them sink to the bottom, you end up with gloss and then all this stuff at the bottom. So the sheens on those aren't real whoopee as far as I'm concerned.
In terms of repairing finishes, I was 8 or 9 years old, but my grandmother's house had some iced tea. We set it down on the table without a coaster, and there's a white ring.
Right.
There you go, Mike.
So a white ring, a white ring is moisture. and you can get rid of it. One way to get rid of it is to wait, because as seasonal changes of humidity occur, moisture comes in and goes out of our wood all year round. That white ring is trapped moisture. It will eventually go away. Now, it might take a year or two, but it will go away. No. If it's lacquer, you can use blush remover. That's actually called blush when you see the white. Blush remover is a real high-powered thinner. And you spray it on and you let it set. And what it's doing is it's liquefying that area. And it's allowing that moisture to evaporate away. And you don't touch it because you'll put fingerprints in it then. And then it will dry and you'll say, oh, there's still a little bit left. Do it again. And it will liquefy that top coat and allow that moisture to come away. It's called blush remover. But anytime you see that, you'll see, I had a lady that she came in every 3 months or so, and she bought 2 cans of blush remover because when they installed her dishwasher, the steam exhaust would come up and her countertop underneath the trim on her countertop and her drawer fronts would get white because of the moisture. And she just sprayed on and then, put on her, and it was good as new. And every 3 months, she would go and buy 2 cans of blush remover. So, because the steam really affected the lacquer on there. So.
I think overall, lacquer is a nice, durable finish. Hard to stay on it, but if for just to look at.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. Yeah, you just have to play with it, practice, see what you like. I know Kevin was telling me about the success he had with one of the finishes I offered up last time on doing curly woods, how to dye it dark and then dye it lighter and then sand. And it was, quite impressive, I guess.
It really worked good.
Yeah, he sold. So I'm going to show you another one that, and I think I'll stop on this note because we're getting kind of close on time, aren't we? Yeah, okay. So this will be my last thing. This isn't actually a wet demo, but I'll pass this around. So this is a box with a little lid. Take one. So that's curly maple. Here's some quilted maple. Ooh, the people will marvel. Okay. So first you start with tannic acid. Mix this up, paint it on the wood, and it will turn it kind of brown color, kind of the brown that's on these. And then the next day, after it's dry, you come back with, I just had it, oh, there it is. Iron nitrate. This is a liquid. Paint that on, let it dry overnight, and it will turn dark brown. Well, we're not done yet. Then you take a heat gun and you heat up this, and that iron nitrate, when it is heated with the tannic acid, would become iron nitrite, and it will be black. I mean, black. Then you start sanding. And the more you sand, the more that brown's going to come through. The less you sand, it'll be more black. This is a really famous gun stock finish. But that's the effect that you can get on that using this tannic acid and iron nitrate on there. So that might be another one for you to try, Kevin.
Mix that with water.
Yeah, you just mix it with water. One thing about water, if you use your household water, you may want to have it looked at and find out what's in it. Because if your water has any iron content in it, woods that are heavy in tannins, like oak, may gray. And so I always use distilled water, a buck a gallon. That way I know I'm getting very consistent water. Because I live in Olathe, and the chemicals they put in the water vary for different times of the year. And so with the distilled water, I know I'm getting a very consistent water. So yeah, the powder you just mix up with the tannic acid, you mix up with distilled water. The dyes that we were talking about earlier, mix that with distilled water. So always very consistent here. Okay, I think I bored you enough. I could go on. Believe I do this for 3 days. But in the class, you are actually doing it yourself. You're not. Yeah. Oh yeah, the paint. Yeah. So you put on one layer of paint, let it dry overnight. And then if you've ever read the Hyde glue bottle, long assembly time, interior use, reversible bond, ideal for crackle effect. Yes, says it right on the bottle. So just open it up, squirt some on, paint it. It doesn't have to be over the entire door, but maybe just, if you're building a piece of furniture, you're always closing and opening this door right down here. The oils from your fingers over time will make the paint crackle. Well, let's hurry it along. So right around that knob where I'm always going to be grabbing, I'll just paint some of this crackle or this hide glue on that area and let it dry overnight. Then when I come back with my second paint color over the entire door, where that hide glue is, it will crackle. Then it will expose the color underneath. If you put it on thicker and just barely brush it, you'll get thick crackle far apart. If you put it on real thin and overwork it, you'll get thin crackle close together. Does that answer your question? Yeah. And so that's a neat way to get a crackle finish on there. And I'm sure if you're painting a bowl or a vessel, you could do that crackle very easily on a lathe, just with the glue on there. I don't know if you finish it like that or not, if you've used paint. Yeah. So, no, it can be. Yeah. Well, the milk paints and the chalk paints are what really crackle well. So that's what I like, because even after it's crackled, it will be kind of crunchy and it's sharp. So you do want to sand it and get it smooth again. Then you could put on a wax on top of it. You could put on a boiled linseed oil or tongue oil, or even a water-based top coat. So, yes. Oh yeah, like this stuff right here. Here's $77. So the one thing about Rubio Monocoat is it only sticks to wood. A guy came in the store and said, I put 3 coats of that on. I said, really? Because 2 of those coats didn't stick to anything, because it doesn't even stick to itself. It only sticks to wood. Yeah. Yeah, third time. So in Europe, this is big on floors and trim.
Is that durable?
It is durable, yes. And it's highly repairable. The Applebee's restaurants,
Yeah.
I think it's Applebee's, they use this on the floor in their entryways. Yeah. Hey kid, there's that scratch over there. Go sand this. Go sand it with the sandpaper. Put some of the stuff on there and use this white pad to grind it in, and then wipe off the excess. You're done. But it only sticks to bare wood. It won't stick to itself even. And so yeah, for floors, these are great. But for furniture, not so sure, because in 50 years when it does need to be refinished, you have to get rid of all of this before you can do something else. Or they have to know that it was finished with Rubio Monocoat, and they might be able to find it again.
How does that compare to Odie's oil or Osmo?
Those two are hard wax oils. And so, no, not the same product.
Okay.
But similar, but they have a what do they call that? Accelerator that helps it cure faster. It cures in about 3 days instead of 2 weeks. So, yeah, but Odie's, you put this on real thin. I like using a white Scotch-Brite pad to really get it worked into the wood well. Let it set for a bit and then wipe off the excess. And I continue to wipe until no more oil comes off on a rag or a bounty paper towel. That's the thing, is that all these penetrating oils, not penetrating, all these hard wax finishes, very, very thin coats. Otherwise it won't cure. If you feel the next day it's still kind of greasy, you put on too much. Just take a paper, or not a paper towel, a terry cloth towel, and wipe off the excess. If it still feels a little Yeah, just keep wiping until no more oil comes off on your rag. So,
light must begin with.
right. Yeah, but the Odie's like rubbing in with a white Scotch-Brite pad, work it in. And then
Let it sit for a bit.
15, 20 minutes, half an hour. 15, 20 minutes, half hour, whatever I feel like. You know, if I'm in a hurry, I want to go to bed, time for dinner. So, yeah.
That's good. Greg. We're going to take about 10 minutes for some refreshment break, and I'm sure if you've got questions, still, Greg, he'll be up here and be able to answer them, or you might go grab a refreshment too.
Are there still openings in your class tomorrow?
This time it filled up in.
Well, last time it was like.